Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors Self-Publishing Advanced Salon with me, Joanna Penn, and Orna Ross. Hi, Orna.
Hi, everyone. It's September 2017,
Oh,
almost.
yeah, that's where we are.
And we're talking to you from London. And Joe's in
And
Bath.
Bath.
Yes, yes,
There
yes.
we go.
And yeah, have you had a good month?
And we have lots of lots of exciting things. So my update is I literally just this evening sent the Map book, which is a fantasy novel, off to my story editor. Now, when commenting on the need for editors, I've said to her, please do not line edit this. This is a story edit, and I haven't had like a proper story edit since my last series. Now, this is the first novel in a new series, new characters, new world, new genre, because I've never really written a really fantasy novel before. And it's been so hard. And I want to give a shout out to all the fantasy authors and say, when you actually have to invent the world as well as the characters and the plot and everything else, it's hard work. So this has been really challenging. So I've sent it off to my story editor with help me with the problems that or pick out all the issues, because so anyway, that I'm really looking forward to getting those comments back, because you do get to a point with a novel, don't you, where you just need some help, and that's what professional editors are actually there for.
Yes, you stopped using beta, as we call them, beta, as our American friends call them, readers, didn't you? You just use professionals now. Is that right?
Yeah, because I don't know. I find the beta reader thing quite complicated, and I'd rather have a professional story person actually deal with my book than someone who is a reader. I have an advanced reader team for later, but they get a version that is more for reviews than for comments. Yeah, I guess that's why. Why do you have people for your fiction?
Well, not really. I have I suppose, what you'd call a couple of trusted readers along the way, and people I would talk to about the things that are rising. But I never really did the send it off to lots and lots of people thing, because I've always found lots of different reactions to my books anyway, and I tend to agree that a good editor can add so much just by what they know about how a story works, etc., etc. Or even if it's nonfiction, they think at a different level, and I found that most useful, I suppose. But and that's not to say that I wouldn't, and it's not to say that I think people shouldn't. I think both can be useful depending on what you like to do. Yeah.
And just on that, I did want to comment to people, because I mostly dictated this first draft, and this is the other thing I'm finding. I just did my hand edits, and it is the messiest hand edit I've had for probably for a lot of books now, and I'm wondering it's because my dictating voice is not my writing voice. So for example, passive sentences, I found a ton of like every second line is passive, and I have to change it to more active writing, which has made it a very messy edit, a faster first draft. Like some days I was getting 5,000 words, and then a really messy edit. So I'm going through some really interesting potential changes in my process, and I don't really want to just run back to how I used to do things, but it does feel very frustrating to have to almost rewrite. And I haven't been a rewriter for a number of books now. I'm more like a polisher
upper. Yeah, but you were, in fairness, for the last number of books at the end of series, or in places,
exactly.
Work that you knew very well, with characters you'd come to live with you for a long time and all that. So it might be that as well.
Exactly. So I just wanted to tell people, how it, that process doesn't stop changing. I think this is like novel 16 or something at this point. So it's, it doesn't stop and become suddenly easier, and you've got to keep challenging yourself, right? So tell us about what you're writing, because you've done an amazing thing.
I've done something I never did before. Well, yeah, I decided to go hell for, it's very fashionable in indie author land to be writing very fast. So, I don't like to be left out of things. So, no, I had this book that's been kind of something I have intended to do for a very long time, but I didn't feel I was ready to do it, called How I Self-Publish My Books kind of thing. And of course, I know how I self-publish at the level of getting a book out, the production and all that hasn't changed very much. It just adapts a little bit. Something like vellum comes along and you start to use, good tools, but the essential process of making a book and putting it out there hasn't changed very much. But I think of now self-publishing as being so much bigger than that. My blog, and in this whole time, I've kind of come to realize how important things like blogs and social media communication sometimes, and emails that you're sending to, well, your newsletter, obviously, but also just emails to readers and to people who feed into the book, and to editors, as we were talking about earlier, and all of that. So I finally, about 6 weeks ago, I realized I'm ready to write that book now. I know what I do. I know why I do it. I know why that bit's there, and I wanted to do that over there. And there are lots and lots of projects for me that are kind of coming to an end that I have been working on for a very long time. I would include my blog. My blog won't end, but I have a much different sort of vision for it, and it fits now. And I was never really quite sure what I was doing with my personal blog. So that has felt very good. So I decided, okay, I'm working hard on getting this Go Creative series, all the ducks in a row for that, but I actually needed a break from that. And various books are at various stages. I just needed to step back. So I decided I'd go hell for leather, hearing some of these amazing kind of numbers that people talk about in terms of word count. I decided to just kind of go and give that a go. So I have 85,000 words now. I can't believe
it's amazing.
It's ridiculous, but actually I'm cheating. I have to admit, I have an awful lot of blog posts that were relevant to this book that I was able to, they still need to be adapted and everything. You can't just plonk them down. But I did have a lot of material. I have 4 years of writing about self-publishing in all sorts of different ways that I was able to draw on. But still, I did a lot of writing, and dictate, drag and dictate, which I use anyway. I've always used, but I never really used it in that sort of let's get as much out as we possibly can in the next 20 minutes kind of thing, So it's been really interesting. I feel fantastic. I remember reading Rachel Aaron, is that
2K to 10K.
2K to 10K. And I remember her talking about how great she felt when she was pushing her word count, and that kind of stayed with me. And now I know what she was talking about. I feel like somebody who's been getting joy injections every morning. I'd probably read it now and weep in another few weeks. But anyway, for the moment,
yeah, like I have done.
Yeah, exactly. It could well be. I saw your picture on Instagram, actually, of the edit and the various, but I mean, my pages always look like that. I am a rewriter. I rewrite a lot. So I didn't think it was too frightening, I have to say.
Oh, I did pick some really bad pages. I was like, I think people like to see it. I think it's one of the things that you learn when you're a new writer. And if people listening haven't actually got that book out yet, it's, you think, oh, and you compare your first draft to someone else's finished product without remembering all the editing that goes into actually polishing it. In fact, that picture I put on Instagram, I just had to check. I was kind of zooming in to check if anyone could actually read the pile of crap underneath.
I think you really arrived as an author when you can put a pile of crap on Instagram. I think that's good, even if you didn't have to check.
Oh, good. Right. So what else have you been doing? So you've done that. And that. So when can we expect that book on self-publishing?
Well, pretty soon, I think. I'm going to finish it off and self-edit, and then it goes to Debbie, who's now in the Alliance, has taken over as publications manager. So she is going to be, she's going to be looking after our all our various publications, actually, not just our guides. So she'll be the beta reader, and she will have plenty to say, I know. And she's also very experienced in the world of self-publishing. And in this case, I might ask a few trusted, people who have written their own self-publishing books and, who know a lot about this topic. And if you know anybody like that, you might just...
I better get a coffee. And you've also got an event coming, haven't you? Because you're not content with just doing all the writing and the Alliance stuff. You have to go and do like live events too.
Oh, in fairness, I haven't done one for ages.
Since we did one in May.
That's right. Yes, I've been very quiet this year because very often I would have lots and lots of live events kind of punctuating the year. So not this year. I've really focused in on writing and other tasks in Ally, and I've been enjoying that. But yeah, the Go Creative series has been such a monster, a marathon, you know, it's been an incredible thing. I have to do something to kind of put it out there. So I am going to do a day workshop, and I have also finally launched the online club, which supports the books and the people who kind of need a bit more than just the book. So yeah, lots going on over there. But as I said, just the intensity of the writing of the series, I just needed a little break from that. So, and I'm really looking forward to that event, actually. It's going to be great. Yeah.
And people can find that, and that is in London. Sorry, international people, but it's in London on the
25th of November, Saturday, the 25th of November. It's in Regent's Park University. You find it on my website under live talks and workshops. If you're interested in coming along, it would be great. It's not just for authors. It's not really, you know, it's called How to Create Anything. And the premise is that the same process that creates a book actually creates everything that we're making in our lives, from our relationships to, you know, our morning breakfast and everything in between. So, and I really
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think it will be a good day. And yeah, it will be great to have some writers there, but it won't be exclusively writers. It's going to be much broader than that. It's a kind of a life thing. The books are self-helpy, mind, body, spirit kind of books. So yeah.
Sounds cool. Okay, so I have something else which I thought people might find interesting is that I've just done a large print edition of the first in our Sweet Romance series that I co-write with my mom, which is still secret. So and I'm just about to rewrite book 3 this week. So she does the first draft, I do the rewrites. So again, changing heads from fantasy to contemporary romance, sweet romance, emphasis on the sweet. But yeah, so when we were looking at Amazon ads for romance books, because we don't have a platform for this author name, all we're doing is using KDP Select and Amazon ads pretty much, and some Facebook ads occasionally, but mainly Amazon ads. And we found that people are actually searching for large print romance, and it makes sense. I mean, we all assume that people have got Kindles or Kobos or iDevices that zoom in and make the font bigger, but it turns out there's actually quite a large market for large print, and it's very easy on CreateSpace. So this, and I've emailed Ingram about this, because on CreateSpace you can actually tick a box that says large print, so that when the book goes up on Amazon, it comes up as a separate print edition. So there's now a Kindle edition and a normal paperback and a large print. And then if people are actually searching, I presume that flag means somewhere in the system that there might be recommendations. And so you can obviously put one on Ingram, which I have, but there's no flag for large print specifically. So you have to put it in the description rather than...
I understand. Yeah. Very good.
But I thought that was interesting because, of course, it doesn't cost you much money. I paid my designer, the lovely JD Smith design, and she just took the existing file, changed the size of the font, checked everything, and we were off to the races. So if you are someone who writes books that an older demographic then consider it. I mean, certainly go and do some keyword searches, because it doesn't cost you much money. I mean, 50 quid, you're going to make that back with a
very, very easily.
Yeah, very fast.
Extra editions are always well worth the investment. I didn't know anything about that. That is complete news to me. Very interesting.
I know, from someone who last year wasn't doing any print is now like, Sarah, you should all do large print. And talking about the weird world of print, Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush, who are wonderful indie godparents, I call them, are out in Oregon and have just bought a bookstore, like a physical bookstore. So I've got Dean's blog post up here, which is how to run a bookstore in 2017. So just so people know, so Dean and Chris are, Dean's certainly in his 60s, Chris is a bit younger, but they live in Oregon, and they have 2 stores already. So they have physical stores full of collectibles. They have employees, and then the bookstore in town was closing down. The guy was getting too old, and so they've bought it. And Dean's got all these things that they're going to do with the bookstore. Now, you can go and read his blog post about it, but I think it's classic because he immediately says this is not just about leaving the door open and expecting local people to come in and buy books. He's got all these plans, you know, eBay for signed print. They're going to, you know, be a vendor on Amazon. They're going to do a whole load of stuff online to add to the print sales. So I'm finding this really interesting. It's not something I would do, but what do you think about this?
I think they're great, first of all. I'm absolutely delighted to say that they're going to be on Indie Author Fringe talking about their long career in books, because they're always so interesting. And, you know, Chris's stuff on business is just fascinating. A bookstore at this moment in time, I want to ask them that, why now when so many physical stores are closing and so on. But I think you've kind of answered it. It's not going to be just a store that sits there doing what it has, you know, what bookstores have always done. And I love them for doing this and so many of the things that they do. And I like to think that, you know, indie authors are remaking bookstores as well as publishing, because publishing, of course, bookstores are part of the whole publishing ecosystem. And PJ Books is a partner member who actually exclusively stocks indie books, and she's a slightly different model. You pay for the space and stuff like that, and there are a few bookstores in London doing that now as well. But I will be watching what Chris and Dean get up to, very closely, because they're great. But I don't think too many indie authors are going to be following in their footsteps. But I bet they'll be really interesting. About the backstory will have stuff that is of interest to everybody, you know, because their strategies and their ideas about what's going on, it's always so author centric, and it's always so clued in, and they always seem to be, you know, they stay in a steady place, even if they do loads and loads of things, loads of different things. You get a sense that they're very grounded in what they choose to do, and that they know what they're doing and why they do it and all that kind of stuff. So good for them.
And one example being that they don't travel much anymore because Chris has allergies. So they were like, well, you know, there's pros and cons of going to conventions and events, but it basically just makes her sick. So they said, okay, we're not doing that. We're here. If you want to come to our workshops, you have to come to our town, you know, on the edge of the Pacific. So I'm going back there this October again. So I'm really excited about that. But that, you know, those types of decisions are really important for our mental health as well as our physical health. And you and I talk about this all the time. Taking on too much and not making good decisions about like what we should say no to. I'm worse right now, but you've had your moments.
Oh, I've been bad. Yes, I just haven't have had a good year, and you know, it is a balance. There will come a time where I will be dying to get back out there and you know, talk to people and share what's going on, and you know, all of that. But definitely every so often, if you want to write and you want to produce decent stuff, you know, you can fire stuff off the top of your head, but if you actually want to do what you came into this whole thing for in the first place, which is to connect deeply and to kind of, you know, go into the thing, you do have to stop. You know, put a stop to your gallop, as my mother said when I was mowing one day. And she was absolutely right, as usual.
Awesome. Okay, so and this kind of ties in slightly, because one of the things Dean says is that the very first thing a modern bookstore has to do to survive is offer other things for sale in your store other than books. Now, that's the very first thing he says. So multiple streams of income is something that you and I both talk about a lot. But you had an interesting blog post out this week talking about, you know, making money in different ways and the blockchain. So we, you know, I think the term blockchain has people, I used to think blockchain and Bitcoin was the same thing, but they're not. You know, Bitcoin is a currency, blockchain is a encryption technology, I guess. But you wrote a blog post this week about self-publishing 3.0 and, you know, sort of the new potential creative economy. Now, this is a huge topic, but do you want to just give us a bit of an overview about the potential and what it could mean? Because you've got a lot more coming on this.
Yeah, we have quite a bit coming because we're going to do a campaign, blockchain for books. And I feel a bit about the blockchain the way I felt about self-publishing when I heard about it first. I have a sense of excitement and that there is a lot of potential here and lots of opportunity if we can avail of it. And in the same way that, you know, Ally is not just kind of sitting on the side looking at self-publishing and commenting on it, but is actually an advocate. I feel the same way. I think we could just kind of sit back and observe the blockchain and see, but I think by actually advocating for it, we can shape it and we can turn it. So, you know, what is it and why do I feel there's potential there? It's very hard to explain, first of all. It's like trying to explain the internet before anybody has ever used it. So the actual technology, I will definitely leave to somebody else to explain. But essentially what excites me about it is a further democratization of the chain. And for the first time ever, there is an opportunity, I believe, for us to have an author-led value chain. So up to now, you know, there have been large corporate entities and money has filtered down from them. And at the very bottom of the heap, after everybody else was paid, authors got paid. That changed with self-publishing, you know, 1.0 was desktop publishing and was a small thing. Self-publishing 2.0 was the internet and social media and how that allowed us to actually take our books out and put a buy button under the buyer's nose at the same time as they heard about this book that they'd hopefully like to buy. That was just the biggest change of all. It was amazing that we were able to do that. But we still are in a situation where a large, you know, one large entity dominates the space. Now, we are very lucky in our world that the entity that dominates the space pays up to 70% commission on every sale they make. In, you know, with musicians and YouTube, people get nothing. So we have done very well in this part of, you know, in this radical change of going digital for content and information. Authors have managed to hold the value, and I actually believe, though we don't have figures, it's too big a world and there's too much going on, I'm firmly of the belief we have grown the value for the author in this past 5 years or 10 years, but 5 years really since it really kind of took off in a big way. And now I think what's actually going to be possible, but only possible if authors understand that it's possible and understand the opportunity that is there. And that's where I think our role comes in. It's going to be possible to actually the money chain comes through the author first. And it is so distributed and broken up that no one large entity dominates. And so there are loads of issues behind this that are, you know, come with it. But I think it is very interesting. And I think that the key thing there for us in terms of what we can bring and what we can offer is just raising the awareness with authors, first of all. So we will be publishing a white paper about it, explaining what it is, explaining the opportunity, explaining the challenges, because it isn't just easy peasy, and trying to get our own heads around it and just let people know that this is coming. And, you know, when something is coming is a very good time to start thinking about it, rather than when it's happened and it's kind of behind you and somebody else has got in there first. So yeah.
And I think, yeah, talking about this now, it is, as you say, kind of like talking about the internet when you haven't seen the internet. Now, you don't need to understand how the internet works. We're on the internet now with Skype, and then you're going to put it out on a website and the world can log on and see it. Now, we don't really know how that works, but we use tools like Google Hangouts or Skype. And so this is what, you know, people listening, don't be scared of, oh my goodness, I have to understand encryption technology. No, you won't, because what's happening right now is there are a whole load of people who do understand it, and then there are apps being built on top of the blockchain technology that will essentially allow, well, everything from like peer-to-peer finance to, you know, and from what I've learned about it, it's a form of trust between parties that doesn't need like a bank or Amazon or anything else to go in the middle. And the trust is because of the network. So it's much more, it sounds almost utopian, which means it will, you know, lots of people will try and screw it up. But as you say, we should try and be part of what they're doing. It's almost like open source technology, like Linux or, you know, WordPress. things that really have become the backbone of the internet. One of the things, so I mean, there's something else I think is exciting is smart contracts, which I've been reading about, which, you know, which would mean that, you know, a publisher in Kenya could do a deal with us, you know, you or me, for you know, for books, and we would be able to monitor all the transactions that go on under that. So suddenly you remove all the issues around international things that happen, and you can use different currencies that don't involve banks. And the other thing is micropayments. So let's come on to that, because I think secondhand ebooks are going to be a big thing. So in the Netherlands, this happened last time, but we didn't have time to talk about it. So in the Netherlands, there's been a court case over the last few years over actually selling secondhand ebooks. So you can't do it with Amazon Kindle books because they're not, you don't own it, you only have a license. But with some of the other books, a Kobo, for example, you can actually resale those books, and it is happening in the Netherlands and has been, it's legal. So that means that it's legal across the European Union. Which is interesting. So this, but what the interesting thing is with micropayments is that if you could attach something in the blockchain to an ebook file, then you could sell that and sell that and sell that, and then the author would get money all the way down the chain. Authors have never made money out of secondhand print books or any secondhand books, right? So I'm like, wow, that's another income stream. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the digital wallet and the idea, I mean, that is essentially how it would happen. And the challenge is, you know, well, first of all, the potential of the digital wallet is huge, because if the author actually owns it, and all your payments have to come, you know, to you first and then go from you back out, that's obviously a complete upside down reversal of the way things have been. But also you can credit your editor, you can put in the wallet can hold the back history of the book, an extract, you know, whatever you want to be there, so it can become part of the whole creative endeavor, and everybody who has touched that can actually know about it. And I think this is something that creatives like a lot, and so you're setting up a chain and a network in that sort of way as well. But the challenge is it has to be as easy to pay into that wallet as it is to download into your Kindle or to, you know, to take down a tune on iTunes or something. You know, it has to become that easy while being super secure, and that's the challenge. The trust thing is nearly built in because of the way in which it updates in real time. It's also got huge transparency, which is marvelous, because so much of publishing is smoke and mirrors, but you can actually, you'll be able to see, and there'll be no more of this, you know, ebooks don't sell and they're falling and so on, because we'd be actually able to see the transactions. And yeah, there's just so much there that's very, very interesting and exciting, and we need to it's exciting to think that we will be able to shape it, how it develops for writers and authors, because it is something like WordPress that gets shaped by the more people who contribute to it. Everybody has something, you know, everybody makes it what it is, which is marvelous. And then with micropayments, everybody gets paid. So you'll still have your superstars, but you'll have an awful lot more people coming into the middle where, you know, you are both a buyer and a seller. It's not, and that was the original vision back in the day with Ted Nelson and Xanadu and two-way links. That was the vision, that there would be lots and lots of you know, when I say lots and lots, gazillions of microtransactions, and everybody's a buyer and seller. What we got instead was about 4 or 5 huge players who sucked up all the information on the internet and kind of made it their own, and are still very actively working to take that information from everybody. And, you know, we're freely giving it away and putting no value on it. So as, you know, the last living people who value information and few people who should be paid, you know, I think we have a very important role to play, because as 3D printing comes along, the Internet of Things, the people who get kind of thrown out of the value chain, it'll be more and more and more people, unless we value information, unless we actually say, and that's the key to this, is to have that sort of mindset, an indie mindset that says, I value myself, I'm not going to give stuff away. I may give something away strategically, you know, as a free offer to in order to attract readers or something as a short-term strategy, but I'm not going to feel that I don't deserve to be paid. I'm lucky enough to be able to do this thing, and it doesn't have a value. So big shift, big mind shift needed, as big a shift as the one away from trade publishing to, you know, doing without the validation kind of thing and deciding to do rather than to beg. It's as big a shift again, I think, needed. But I'm very excited by it, I must say.
Yeah, me too. And I also think that the micropayments will make our sales truly international because of, you know, there are billions of people in Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, who cannot afford the prices that we put on our books, even in local currency. And micropayments will open up the market to people in these other economies. So, you know, yet if you get 0.004 on a book in, you know, India, and then you have 2 billion people read it, everyone's good. So this is the thing. I really think that micropayments are coming. And have we finished Bitcoin? Because that was my segue.
Oh, beautiful.
No, sorry, blockchain.
Beautiful. A work of art.
I'm so good at segueing into the next topic. Yes, so micropayments are so important. And of course, Amazon has really annoyed everybody in the last few weeks because they released the latest KDP Select. The pool size went up, the per page read rate went down to 0.004 per page read, which a lot of people have got angry about. Some people have kind of stomped off KDP Select. And as you said, I mean, well, firstly, it's their company. They can do whatever they like. And if you sign their contract, which is clicking the button to be exclusive for 90 days, then that's what happens. And I have my Sweet Romance on there and a couple of other books. And that's just the way it goes. It's the way cookie crumbles. I don't see how you can do anything about that, except go wide and then build your audience elsewhere. So, you know, my thoughts as ever are the more books you have, the more choice you have, and the more you can change up, do different things. But I think definitely when we have 5 books under the Sweet Romance, we will go wide. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I suppose my main thought is that, you know, nothing changes in terms of strategy. Definitely going wide, diversified, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But of course, strategically, you might put one book, or you might, you know, when you're starting your career or whatever, using any of this strategically is a good idea. But as a life choice, as a business choice for a lifetime, depending on one outlet is just a crazy notion, because I think we're so lucky to have Amazon, by the way. I'm, you know, huge fan of what Amazon has done, obviously. I mean, that goes without saying. But at the same time, it just doesn't make good sense to put all your eggs in one basket. The other thing is that I'm always amazed by, you know, something changes and then whoop, you know, thousands of authors change what they were doing yesterday and they're doing something new today because somebody else did something. And that always surprises me. I would like to think that we, you know, we embed our strategy. We have an idea of what we're doing. Changes come, we sit back, we observe. You know, there is always this panic around what Amazon is doing. That slightly worries me. I would love to see indies being a bit more sort of, you know, and I think in a way you do have to go wide to get to that point where you don't feel so, because obviously if all your books are there and they make a change, it's a huge change and it can really make a major difference to somebody's income. I get that. I'm not stupid. I do understand why it happens. But at the same time, I think as a general move, we should be trying to think about ways that we are not so vulnerable there. I'm very interested as well in the people who have good websites. You see some authors with really good websites and very good traffic who would never think of selling their books on their website. And if you ask them why, they say they can't because of Amazon. And, you know, with lots and lots of books and lots of options available to them, I don't understand why you wouldn't build up something on that site that you could call your own, even if it was huge, you know. So yeah, it's interesting, and we're vulnerable. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, we are vulnerable, and because our income is actually in the hands of a middle entities. And to be truly indie would be, I mean, does anybody ever completely get free of an economic system? Of course not.
No.
But to be truly indie would be to get beyond that as best you can within the circumstances that you find yourself.
I must say, like, as we talk, the eclipse happened in America. Well, kind of, I guess, everywhere, but the whole eclipse. And what was so funny is we were watching like internet TV last night, and the internet went down, and I was like, oh, haha, just restart the thing, the router, and then nothing happened. And I was sitting there going, oh, because some dooms people were like, oh, the eclipse and the world's gonna end, no more internet. And I was sitting there going, I am independent in that we have enough income streams from all different places that we're fine. If, don't want anyone to drop us, but if they did, we'd survive. And then I was like, but if the internet went down,
yeah.
So yes, we can be truly independent. I mean, from that, but we're still dependent on some bigger ecosystems. But if the internet went down, we wouldn't be able to watch Game of Thrones. So
that would be worse than not earning a living.
Exactly. But, okay, so that's cool. So anyway, just sort of circling back on the micropayments, I do think that what's good about Select is that it's teaching people about micropayments, because I think we will have less and less of this kind of big chunk of money for this. The business model of the indie author is very much smaller amounts of money for the longer term, as opposed to traditional publishing, which is a spike model and then a nothing. We are kind of building a baseline that hopefully will continue for the long term. So yeah, I think in a way it's very good to be aware of micropayments at this stage.
It is, absolutely. And also to be aware of the fact that authors have always been, proportionally, I mean, not the kind of micropayment we're talking about there, but we have always been paid very, very little. If you talk to the average person in the street about how much an author gets from a book, a trade published book, and, it's not much more percentage-wise, it's much more as an indie, but sometimes not. It depends on what you're doing and how much you paid to actually sell that book as to how much you end up with it from it at the end of the day, and it's not that high. So, but the fact that you have a global audience means that even if you are only getting $1 on a book, because there is a global audience there, as there is when trade publishing puts its weight behind a title, or as there is for self-publishers, who do well on the various platforms, then you can make a living from that. And, in a sense, we can help people to see that as well, and to understand that if we get it, that's what we've always been doing. And okay, the payments are going to get smaller, but the number of people who are going to have access to the work is going to expand, exponentially. And so, micropayments are the future.
Yeah, definitely. So you heard it first here. And if you haven't got a clue what we're talking about, well, isn't there going to be a webinar or something on blockchain?
Yeah, we'll, again, Fringe, we will have the committee. We've got a committee coming together to talk about all the issues, and we're going to produce a white paper and probably some sort of publication and present the findings and so on. So as part of that, as a sort of an interim step, we will be doing something for Fringe, Frankfurt Fringe, which is on the 14th of October, online, where we get together to talk about this in a bit more detail and try to explain just some of the nuts and bolts that we need to know, the bits we do. So it's blockchain for books. It's not, what is the blockchain?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's interesting because I've got some books to take away on holiday about the technology for what the world's going to be like in 2050, and the blockchain book, and a number, because I'm preparing to do a podcast episode on publishing in 2027, because right now in 2017, this year, 10 years since the iPhone and the Kindle first came out. So we're kind of going to look how much has the world changed in the last 10 years and then try and look forward. And I'll be doing that with Emmanuel Nataf from Reedsy, who is a young millennial, and who's really up on all this stuff. So I'm really excited about that. That's coming in November. So you and I are like on the futurist thing in the coming months.
It seems to be, yeah. It's interesting.
Interesting time. Right. One more thing before we wrap up, and I hate to talk about this, but the Facebook chatbots, had to mention it because it's like everywhere right now. It's the thing. Like, everyone get into chatbots, and I have a message on my all my Facebook stuff which says, don't message me, you have to email me. I don't check my messages. But you've seen these things, have you?
Yeah, oh gosh, and this is a case as well of what I was talking about. Everybody's off now. This is the latest kind of thing, and I can see the potential. The idea of it, I just really don't like it. I think it's the worst kind of advertising, very intrusive, and not looking forward to it really at all. But then I felt the same about pop-up. Sign-ups. I still don't have one because they annoy me so much, but I do know they just exponentially send your sign-up soaring. So I'm sure it would be like that. People like me saying, "Oh God, no, horrible," and other people doing really well from it. It probably will work well, certainly at first. But I feel if you're going to get a lot of it, that consumers are going to get very, very tired of seeing messages or ads in between their messages. I don't like the idea of it. It seems a step too far. It's different to having it in the sidebar as you're reading something, to my mind.
Yeah, I think the takeaway from this, because we're not really the demographic for this, maybe, I don't know what is, but because I'm not very good on Facebook. But basically, everybody listening, don't listen to us about that type of thing. Like, you need to make your own decision as to what you do. But like you said, I think the lesson here is, one, you don't have to jump on everything that comes up that's new. We don't feel happy with it, so therefore we won't be using it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. You, the listener, if you enjoy Facebook and you are into Messenger, then go for it. And from what I've heard, it can convert incredibly well. And I think bots are huge. In fact, my husband said to me the other day, we should get a bot, like a help bot for the Creative Pen. I was like, no, I don't want a help bot. That's me. I'm the help bot. And it was like, yeah, but this could be like a robot. And I'm like, but the thing is, we'll probably come round.
I was just going to say that, in 3 months' time, we could well be waxing lyrical about it.
But what I will say,
is not advice. This is just us riffing.
Our opinion. Yeah. But I think it is important to have an opinion about what you're comfortable with. So, for example, I've had a podcast since 2009. When I started podcasting, it wasn't known as podcasting. It was like downloadable audio, and it was a really geeky niche thing that no one was doing. And now look at it, it's totally mainstream. Getting on Twitter early. I mean, Twitter's kind of random right now, but Facebook, people who got on Facebook ads early were great. So I think we all have to do something for marketing, and you get to choose what it is. And there'll probably be a couple of things, but they can be long-term things. So we've both mentioned blogging, the podcast, these are things that if you own them, they don't go away. So yeah, anyway.
I think so. And also, just one other point on that whole thing that is advice, is to differentiate between, what is core and what you hold and what doesn't change, and things that you're trying and experimenting with that may become part of your core. But there is a difference between, the basics that hold up your platform. And this kind of comes back to what I realized myself about blogging and my whole, how I self-publish and how I do it and what I have been doing. Sometimes you don't even quite know why you're doing something, but you have an orientation, you have some sense of what you stand for, and why you're writing, and what you're writing is for, and what you want to create over time, not just in one book, but in a body of work, and not just in one blog post, but on your website, what people see when they come, they know what you stand for, and those kinds of things should stay. And what Amazon does shouldn't shake all that. You need a foundation, and then strategically you can try all sorts of things, and that's different, so it's to know the difference, I think, is important. And if you don't know the difference, if you haven't worked that out yet, I would say don't spend any money. Just to spend some time maybe. But if you haven't worked out why you're doing it and how you're doing it, it's very hard to even make ads that make sense or that are likely to work well for you if you don't understand those things, you know, what your writing actually is about. And sometimes it could take 3 or 4 books before you know, and then you probably go and write a different series of books anyway, you know. So it's a long game, people.
It is a long game. Actually, Hugh Howey, who is sailing around the world on his yacht, bought with the proceeds of his novels, just posted about writing a book, and this is a marathon and not a sprint. And actually, again, just circling back on the map book and not having a clue, I'm not taking the cover design massively seriously, because my experience with the first book of the first book of all of my series, I have changed, and some of them I've changed twice, and some of them I've changed the title, because on the first book of a new series, you don't really understand what the book is. I don't really know what subgenre it is. I've been looking at all these books on Amazon trying to think what cover should look like, and I don't know what it should look like. So I think that's another thing, is you don't need to take it all so seriously on the first book. Just write some more and you'll work it out.
The book knows more than you do. Let it lead you there. Yeah, exactly. I like it.
Indeed. So anything we need to know about the coming month?
Next month is back to everything. Everything goes nuts here now. It's all been quiet for the last 2 weeks, and middle of next week, everybody will wake up and go, oh, my book, my deadline, and they'll be on. So September is always a busy time. It's great. Always lots of new people coming into. It's kind of back to school kind of feel here in this part of the world. So, you know, there are always people who decide, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to spend the winter writing a book or publishing a book. So, yeah, we'll be looking after that, and then building up towards Fringe, which will be mid-October. But we'll talk again about that next time.
Yeah, about that next time. And I should say, I mean, August book sales are traditionally pretty bad, aren't they? So everybody tighten your belts and look forward to Christmas.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about that. You need to be putting your Christmas strategy in place now shortly.
Yes, goodness me, so much to do. Right, our next salon will be on Tuesday, 26th of September, same time, and it will all the backlist, because we've been doing this for ages, and the other shows now, there are other shows, are all on the selfpublishingadvice.org. Is there anywhere else that people should be looking or checking out? Or
well, it depends on how you like to consume it. If it's here on YouTube, you'll find it there under the playlist. And actually, it's a short. This playlist is quite short, because when we change to the advanced salon, we're keeping them separate so that people who are that bit more advanced can actually tune into this one, and people who want more beginner advice can tune in to Jay and Michael. So they're organized in that way on YouTube playlists, and it's in the usual places as an audio, also iTunes and Stitcher and so on. So, you know, if you want to find it, it's there.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com.
And I'm Orna Ross from the Alliance of Independent Authors.
And now we'll say happy writing and happy publishing, happy marketing, happy.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.